Okay, so I switched over to the head to start modeling on that just because it was so fun and I did not want to wait, kind of being impatient. And so one of the main things I'm going in right now and doing is just starting to block in some of the big forms with some pretty low res geometry. But I think that, you know, when I'm working like that, it just makes it more manageable whenever I'm gonna go in and try and solve these problems. One of the things that I really enjoy about modeling is that it's kind of like, you're kind of like a detective or something, and you're gathering clues, and you know, eventually you're gonna, solve this thing. But in the beginning, you're just trying to get information to make decisions about what step to take next. And when I start on the low res, I just start going at it, and not really knowing where I'm going to end up, but just kind of solving problems as I go along. And you'll see throughout this process that uh, that's pretty much what's happening over and over again. Is I'm evaluating what it is I just created, uh, seeing where I need to go next, and then gathering more information. And so the other thing about the way that I'm laying out this geometry is just I am trying to be a little careful about it. And I know that there's a couple of ways to do this sort of thing. Another approach could be to just go in and create something at a at a much higher resolution that I could just push and pull and mash into place, and then sculpt with maybe some brushes. Like Moto has tools similar to ZBrush that you can sculpt with, but I'm also considering production's needs, and my own personal feeling about that sort of thing is just that I want to try and keep it to a minimum, because I could go in and start generating a lot of geometry that I'm going to have to go back and retopo over. But I don't want to have to do 2 or 3 times the work. I want to try and take my time, maybe a little bit more in the beginning. That way I can lay down clean geometry that I could actually use at the end of this process, because the digital maquette is important and I need to get buy off on it. But what I would like to have happen is that I get that really close geometry wise, so that if and when the client approves it, it's a lot less time between me neutralizing the expression and rigging, getting it, animation can start testing. I mean, those are the other things too that I have to consider. So it's not just representing the digital maquette version of the design, but also doing it in such a way that it kind of I'm preparing myself for the next step, um, and trying to put myself in a position to do that quickly. Most of the time in production, they're needing modeling tends to start at the exact same time as everybody else, and so you're working alongside the texture artists, the riggers, the animators, and they can't start until you have something for them. So here's another thing that I'm doing is, I'm using the drawing to inform these decisions that I'm making, but obviously the drawing is almost a profile image, and so there's things I'm having to solve while I'm working that the drawing's not going to be able to give me all the information I need. So along with that detective work, you have to include some of the things that you use in your arsenal as an artist. So as I'm solving some of these surfaces and things, one of the things I'm trying to do is to create appealing shapes. I'm usually looking for like S curves and things like that, just nice flowing lines that aren't going to crash into one another but kind of complement one another. You'll notice in the drawing there's kind of this flat piece on the back of his head, and then there's like a smooth curve over the front of his face. So you really try and look for things like that, straights against curves, the forms flowing nicely, the cleanness of the geometry as far as the surface anomalies. There's some dents and stuff that I iron out in here that may seem a little tedious or uh, obsessive, but this geometry is going to be something that I can actually use to to get to a really quick place later on the final version, not just the digital maquette. And so I am cleaning up some things that are bumping me, because I know later whenever I'm working I'm going to be needing uh, to have this be good geometry and not be fighting me. Another technique that I use quite a bit right here is I'm hiding and unhiding the mesh against the artwork to see where things are breaking. Because when you trick your eye like that and flip back and forth, you can see things popping, and you can see surfaces that aren't working, you can see curves that aren't working against the artwork, and then you can, and so what I'm doing is just flipping it off and on, off and on, off and on, and then going back and making notes, constantly taking notes in my mind of what I need to fix next, where I need to move to next, and I'm always moving all over the whole object, evaluating everything, doing that detective work to see, okay, where do I need to go, next, what questions do I need to answer. So in here is kind of that little working out some of the geometry on the unsmoothed object, because that's really where it matters. I've seen really cool looking models that when they're not smoothed, oh my god, they're hideous. There's vertices flying left and right all over the place. And something you have to keep in mind is that you're not just working for yourself, and you're not just working for the client, you're working for the departments that are beyond modeling. Modeling's the first step, so you're laying the groundwork, the foundation for the rest of the artists. And if that thing's sloppy and busted, then those other guys are going to be suffering because of that. So you want to keep that in mind and really be mindful of it, and be thoughtful of the other departments. And the cleanliness of the mesh is a big part of doing that. Here again, I'm kind of cleaning up these surfaces and smoothing them out. There was a little bit of a corner on that area right there. What I keep doing with that polygon, and I don't want to be too software specific, but there's certain things that I can do in Modo that I like a lot, and that's one of them. And it's basically, in Modo you can take one polygon and you can turn it into the working plane. And so you could pick up a polygon and then make that the origin, and everything around the scene revolves around that area. And so what I'll do is delete half of the head, bridge between one edge in the front of the head and one edge in the back of the head, and then use that as my new working plane. So that way I can evaluate the model like I'm doing right here, asking myself questions, making changes, and then go in, make those changes, mirror it back over to look at it, and evaluate the entire shape. So that lip got a little pointy, so I'm going back in and fixing that sort of thing. There's also a bit of meat on the front of the lip that you can see it here, it's kind of popping, and I want to go in and fix that. This head gets a little too wide. This is the first part of this video. There's another video that'll be it's going to be coming soon, but this is only the first part, and I know that there's certain things about this mesh that I need to fix, not necessarily resolution wise or edge flow, because that's going to happen too, but just the width of the head on this character gets a little too wide, and I need to fix that. So that's one of the things I'll be addressing the next pass. And so I'm going to be fixing that sort of thing right now. His head's really wide. I'm also looking at, right here, evaluating, because I still need to add the eyes to this model, and so I'm kind of tweaking that shape. I'm also going to block in the cheeks here in a minute on here and get those in there just to kind of evaluate. I want to just quickly just go in, start blocking into big forms, making sure everything's playing nicely together. I don't want to wait till later on to do that. I want to start seeing all of those things break now, so I can start fixing him, you know. There's no sense in being precious about any of it. It's just all going in there, doing the work, getting it laid out, blocking it in, evaluating these forms, making sure they're appealing, and fixing what you need to fix. So here again, evaluating the shape that I'm creating. Here I'm evaluating the corner of the mouth, and you could see it was kind of popping, so I just go in there and start adjusting that. There was also the upper lip. I have to tweak that. Here, see, that head's just too wide. It's always important to look at things with fresh eyes, you know. It's like if you get too caught up in the model, you can easily miss things like that. So you have to step back and view them a day or a day or two later. So a lot of times what I like to do whenever I'm working on a model is I'll work on an area, I'll get it blocked out, I'll get it working in the round, or at least I'll feel like it's working, then I go away from it. So on this guy, I'm going to spend some time on the head because I want to, because it just looks fun, and I want to get it in there because I think it's going to help a lot to really understand this character and where I need to go with the rest of the model. But I also want to get away from the head for a while, and so I'll work on the body, and then I'll work on the tank, then I'll go back to the head, and I'll see a lot of things on it that I need to fix that I wouldn't have seen if I just kept working, detailing, refining on just the head. You know, you have to approach the sculpture from the whole rather than get caught up in the minutia. You don't want to do that. So just evaluating again, seeing what's working, what's not working. So the second part of this video is going to be coming up soon, and hopefully we'll just keep working on this and figuring things out.